Let's get started.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Gullah Business of Charleston. I am the president, Nicole Pringle, and I have the vice president here, Tiffany Savage. And say hi, Tiff, so the camera
Hi.
going.
Hi.
So we're excited about our new feature today. It's been a while since we did an interview, but we're super excited about this person because if you remember, and I remember, I was a teenager, and I'm gonna just give a little story. I was at the library, and this lady came to me and my friend. We were sitting down pretending to read books, and this lady came to us and said, "Oh, you girls need to read this." I was like, What's this?" She said, "Fly Girl, you need to read this book." So we checked out the book. I read it in 2 days, and then I circled back and read it again. So we have here Omar Tyree. He's going to tell us about the relaunchment of Fly Girl, his new book, his book tour, everything. So we just want to thank you, Omar, for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
So we're super excited. You would have told me this when I was a teenager. I'm like, there's no way I'm gonna interview Omar Tyree. You're crazy. I would have said that for real. But you've inspired so many people to read, number one, because a lot of people said, well, I didn't start reading until I read that book, you
Yeah,
know,
yeah,
and just made people want to start writing. I know I was one of them. I was deeply into writing, like my pretend films and little short books and everything like that. So I know you've been an inspiration to many. But if you just give us a background of who you are, how you got started for people that don't know.
Well, a lot of people immediately think that I was a book reader, and I was not. I was a typical boy in the streets of Philadelphia, running around playing football, getting into trouble, fighting, stealing stuff, you know. But my uncles and my family on my mother's side, the McLaurin family, they love movies. So we were a movie family. So at age 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, I'm always going to the movies. And I had two uncles, Monte and Andre. They were like 6 and 9 years older than me, but they were like teenagers when I'm 5. So, my mother was the oldest of 8. And so when they didn't have any money, they would say, we want to babysit the nephew, but we want to go to the movies. We don't have no money for the movies. So my mother would give them $5. This is the 70s, so $5 went a long way back then. And we used to go to the movies and we would see triple features of kung fu movies. It was my uncles was into martial arts and kung fu and all that. It's the 70s. That's Bruce Lee era and whatnot. So I would go to the movies with my uncles and spend the whole day with them, 6, 7 hours. And then I would memorize the movies at a young age because I was really into characters and voices and all that, just like comedians do. And so when I started mimicking voices and studying scenes and stuff, my uncles are like, he didn't memorize the whole movie. So then we get back to our area, in West Philadelphia, outside of the movie theater, when we get back home. And then my teenage uncles had me redoing characters and voices for their teenage friends. And then I had cousins too. So I was used to being like the life of the party as far as storytelling is concerned at a young age. And I kept doing that. And then I moved later on from West Philly to Mount Airy. And that's where the Fly Girl story came from, because Mount Airy was an area, Germantown, West Oak Lane, and Philly, where black people had moved on up in the 60s and 70s. And so we had a little more money there. And so when the 80s happened, everybody was fly with jewelry and, fancy clothes and haircuts and all that. That was the spawning era of hip hop, the 70s and 80s. So we were all outside doing all this stuff. And I was a storyteller for movies. And if we got into any sports and we did any fights, any new movies, movie songs, or any kind of thing, I would memorize everything. And so then I didn't really start writing until I got to college because they wanted to test your reading and writing skills. But my, storytelling skills were off the chart. So once they started asking me to write stories to see how I could write, to test your writing skills. And, I was at Pittsburgh, the University of Pittsburgh, which is, like 4 hours from Philadelphia. And my assignments, they were off the chart with the details and, the voices and all the, what I mean, the stuff that writers have. And, once I was able to translate that on paper now, and I end up getting A's in English and A's at the college level, then it was like, yo, dude, I'm sitting on something. What am I going to do with it? And I didn't back down. I kept going with it. So freshman year of college, that's when I really knew I could do it. And then sophomore year, I started writing my first couple of books, which included Fly Girl. My first book was a book called Colored on White Campus, because I was at the University of Pittsburgh, where we made up 5% of the population. And then I ended up transferring to Howard University, where we make up, 75% of the population, because we have some foreign people there at Howard. And from there, I just kept writing books, and I had a whole lot of things to write about because Philadelphia is a very diverse city with a whole lot going on. And I liked a lot of stuff anyway because I was already going to the movies. And that's how I became a writer. It was already in me from watching movies. I had a movie watching family. And once I found that I was good at it, I kept doing it.
I was just thinking about that transition from University of Pittsburgh to you said Howard.
Yeah. That's
Wow.
DC. Yeah.
Wow.
Well, the biggest difference when we was at Pitt, when you see another black person on campus, you're like, yeah. Then you get to Howard and they like, so what? You know what I mean? Like, we all black here, so that was the big difference. But then another difference, when I was in leadership positions at Pitt, you could feel the friction from white students. You know what I mean? Like, how dare this black guy try to lead the classroom? Because I've always been a leader that's going to speak his mind, say what he got to say, in the whole nine. So you could feel the friction at the white schools. Then when you got to Howard, now you can be a leader without the friction. And so now I figured out why HBCUs graduate so many leaders from our black community, because we're getting the chance to be leaders on college campus without friction, where we're used to it. So we come out of school wanting to be leaders. And so, yeah, you'll get black people out of South Carolina State and black people out of Claflin and black people out of, Morehouse and Clark Atlanta and Bowie State and, it was that North Carolina A&T and North Carolina Central. So we all coming out as leaders, ready to take authority. And so that was the biggest difference between Pittsburgh and HBCU at Howard. Now I can be a leader without friction.
So I want to go back to Fly Girl real quick too. So just hearing your story, I know you had a talent for storytelling, but when did you realize that Fly Girl was a book that really had something, was holding something to it?
Well, when I put it out, I had other books I wanted to put out. I put out a DC book right after it called Capital City, because they called DC the murder capital when I was actually there at Howard. And that was because of the drug territory. They had a drug dealer by the name of Rayful Edmonds who really controlled things. But when he went to jail, all the guys that were under him tried to take over. And so then it was like shootouts everywhere. Everybody's trying to take over. And so I was there at that same time period. And I wrote that book after Fly Girl. But Fly Girl really took off because I didn't know at the time that women were going to do all the reading of fiction. Men don't like reading much of anything, especially not fiction. I didn't know that at the time because I wasn't a book writer yet. But once I started selling my books, I found out that women were willing to buy and read, and men would have conversations with you, shake your hand and say, good luck, brother, and wouldn't buy anything. And so, yeah, that's why Fly Girl outsold everything. Women are more available and willing readers than men are. So luckily, I wrote a book from the girl's perspective. Otherwise, I don't know if I'd have had a career that took off like it did had I not written a book that was so female dominated. So it was lucky that I did that, because I don't know if my career would have took off unless I learned later on that women going to do all the reading instead of the guys.
That's so funny because every time I think about Fly Girl, I think about where I was, the music. Well, the music was definitely different, like compared to now, just everything. It's just like it brings everything back. Because I know when I posted it on TikTok, the thing went crazy. It's like 46,000 people it was like nonstop all day.
Yeah.
Like, so you wrote that, it was 1994.
No, I actually wrote it in 1989.
Wow.
But I was still in college. I was a sophomore. So I wasn't going to put a book out. So I held it. I had floppy disks back then. We had these little floppy disks that you put in your Macintosh computer. And it's crazy. I got like 8 boxes of floppy disks going all the way back to the 1990s. I got these floppy disks with all my stuff saved on it. But yeah, when I put that out, I didn't get a chance to go work back on it again until 92 after I got out of Howard. Then I had to edit it, get it ready, and then I put it out in April 1993. after putting out Colored on White Campus in October of 92. So it came out 4 years after I written it because I was still in college. So I wasn't going to put a book out while I'm still studying, still going to school. So as soon as I got out of Howard, I went right back to publishing my books, and I put it out at age 24. You know, I was 23. Actually, I was 23, and then I turned 24 when it came out in April.
So 93. Now I'm thinking back, I read it in 97. So
Yeah.
it was still holding that excitement and people were still reading it. That's
Oh,
a
yeah.
long time. So what was going on in that time period?
Well, you know, a lot of people didn't get it. So I was self-published, so I only had like 1,000 copies. Then I self-published more. Then I ended up selling 25,000 copies in like 3 years. I think 93, 94, 95. Simon & Schuster picked it up in 95. Then you get bigger distribution. So what happens is now more people can read it because a lot of people were sharing books on the Northeast. You know, I wasn't down in the South. I think I got down to Newport News, the farther South. And then later on, I could get to Atlanta with it. Now I can shirt around to Chicago. So when it got picked up by a bigger publisher, now I have bigger distribution where more people can read it. So yeah, when you self-publish, it's going to take you a while to get to everybody because you don't have the money to facilitate all the copies. But once I got with a bigger publisher, now they could put it out bigger, and then it kept going and growing and growing. And then we put it out as a Walmart mass market copy in 2001. That's when we had the little pink book that came out. You know, so you have the book before the pink book. You were for that one because a lot of people know the pink book. That book didn't come out until 2001, $10 at Walmart. In fact, I think it may have been $8 at Walmart back then before it went up to $10. And so that's when a lot of people, you keep putting it out and keep making it bigger and then keep, you know, making more copies of it. And so we're doing that again. We're bringing it back out again for the people that haven't read it. And we got a whole lot of new young people that don't know about it. So we want to do it again and bring it out for the new readers again.
I'm just curious because you talk about being self-published. I'm just curious, how did you get your start in just being self-published back then? Because I know clearly it's different now. You still take the same risk, but how did you decide, like, hey, I'm gonna go with the head of this route instead of,
Well, I was in DC and I worked for the Black Press because I have a degree in journalism. Because there's no such thing called book writing. You're either going to be an English writer or you're going to be a journalist, people that write on a regular. And so I was already writing and I was in DC and I was around other book people that had books out. And it was this dude that had a book on numerology. You know how you talk about the numbers? Number this means that. Number 8 means this. Number 6 means this. So this dude, his name was Gambri Amlak. And he had printed a book about numerology, and it was like maybe 200 pages. And so I asked him, I said, "Where'd you get your book printed?" And he gave me the address or the phone number and contact to a company called Whitehall Distributors or Printers out of Florida. So then I called up to see how much it would cost to print a book, and they gave me the price. And then I was like, all right, I'm gonna put my book together. Then I had to typeset the book and the whole thing. So I was around other Black people that were putting their books out. Of course, they were older than me. He was in his 40s. I'm still 20 something. But I was like, he got his book out. I got a book I want to put out. I just got to get the money to put it out. And at that time, I was around Black bookstores too. In DC, we had a brother that had, his name was Hodari Ali, and he had a bookstore called Pyramid Bookstore. And he had about 3 of them. And one of them was right up the street from Howard. And then when I went to Howard, we had a bookstore there, and I knew the bookstore people. So when I came out with my book, I had bookstores right there. I had Howard University's bookstore. And then we had a lot of expo events where you would rent a table for like $100 or something. And then you put all your stuff on a table to sell at expo events or Kwanzaa events or, you know, whatever other sales event, vending they call it, right? So I was buying little vending tables. So it was right there in front of me. And once I put my books out and started selling, that was it, man. It kept selling. And then I started distributing more books to the bookstores. And I kept rolling, man. You know, Philadelphians, we hustlers. So we know how to, just like you selling CDs, I was selling books.
I remember talking to Cole. My experience with your book was I had the pink book. So, like, I had the Walmart version, but also, too, I remember back in the day, Ebony Essence, when our parents would get the subscriptions, at the back of it, it would have a little card and you could order like 4 books if you subscribed. And that's how we got some of the books, such as like Fly Girl, too. And we would pass them on to each other. So that was like my experience. Nicole had the library experience, but I think if it wasn't for Ebony Essence, having that partnership with some of these book companies to do that, we wouldn't have
Yeah,
been able to read some of this stuff because you couldn't like just go into Walmart and just get something.
yeah.
Because me and Nicole not only, we're part of this business, but we're family. And so my
Yeah.
mom is naturally like, I love her so much. It's not like she thank you up to anything, but she's just naturally nosy. And so she would have been like, what you got? What you reading? And so I was young. So I didn't have no business reading that in middle school, but I did. But I think that too actually helped too. So I was just curious of how you went from being self-published and then all of a sudden you got picked up by this major publishing house company.
It happens all the time. And you think about music, musicians come out, and they have like a little single that's local. And then the big wigs come in, Sony and Universal come in, the bigger labels, like, hey, man, we want to give you a deal. And yeah, you want more distribution, you want more money. Same thing with film. You come out with your own film. Will Packer, he had his own little films traveling with him. Tyler Perry had his own money to do as Spike Lee came out doing his own films. So it's the same deal. And then the big guys like, hey, man, he's making money off of this. The people like it. And then they jump in there and you want bigger distribution and money. So yeah, big fish swallow little fish all the time. But you got to do it first, because a lot of times if you don't do it, then they still skeptical. But once you do it and people buying it, they can't be skeptical anymore. People are buying it. Let's get involved with them. And so yeah, sometimes you got to show them first that people want the product and then they'll buy it.
Now, I was thinking about going back to Fly Girl because I read a lot of your books. I went back to the list. I'm like, there's so many books that you read. Because at that point in time, I was deep into reading. I was like, I was reading anyway, but you stop because you're a teenager, you're into teenage things. And then I'm like, I'm in the bed with the book, got the candles lit, got the lights dim down low. I'm making a whole scene and I'm just reading and reading and reading. But I remember my niece was turning like 13, 14. I'm like, this is around that time. I said, I think I should pass her this book. I think she needs to read this. I said, I have something I think you need to read. And I gave her the book. She read it in 2 days too. It's just like, so did you hear that a lot of times that book is like a rites of passage? Like it's time for you to read this.
Yeah, it's good. I hope that we can do that again now because now we have a new generation that they don't know anything about it. You know what I mean?
Mm.
So to start it all over again, that'd be great to learn new lessons again. And now it's all three of the books because you guys had to wait for the other books to come out. Now all three of them are going to be right in front of them right now where they can binge read, just like you do with television. You binge watch those shows and stuff and they keep coming on. And so now they can read For the Love of Money Part 2 when she grows up and goes to Hampton and comes out and then starts, teaching and doing poetry. Then goes to LA. And that book has 45 original poems that are great. And I won the NAACP Image Award for that one. And then Boss Lady, then she starts branding a Fly Girl brand and trying to do her own movie. You know what I mean? So in Boss Lady, she's the boss. She got all these girls working for her, talking about the Fly Girl brand and the Fly Girl movie. And so I did that with all three books. And now they really can learn how this woman became a big name. It's fictional, but all the stuff that's in it is factual. That's how it actually happened. I did research on everything. So it's not something that's far-fetched. You go out there to Hollywood, you start writing for small shows, and you keep going up the ladder. And that's what she did. Very ambitious woman and kicked down a whole lot of doors. So it's going to be a fun tour talking about all three books instead of just the Fly Girl book and introducing it to the new young readers.
What has been one of the most surprising things or moments that you've had on this journey so far?
Surprising?
Yeah, I know you got stories.
I know.
When I won that NAACP Image Award, I was really surprised because, I was one of them dudes that would just run his mouth about, the truth about a lot of things. I wasn't really a dude that catered to saying the right things. I was always saying the things that needed to be said. So sometimes when you do that, you're not the most popular. Because Omar's always want to run his mouth about politics. He always run his mouth about the Black Power thing. A lot of times people just want you to say thank you and smile and take a picture. And I always had some type of Black issue I wanted to put on the table all the time. And some people was like, look, Omar, we don't want to hear about them Black issues all the time. Just say thank you, sign your book, and take a picture. I always had something extra to say. So when I went out there with the NAACP Image people, I'm thinking, I'm not going to win. I'm not the most popular. Eric Jerome Dickey is more popular. He takes pictures and smiles. Other people are more popular. So I was out there with flyers for my next book. Just Say No is coming out. I'm out there with a suit and tie on, passing out flyers. So all these people in suit and ties at the end of, and my wife is like, what the hell are you doing? You passing out flyers? Everybody here getting awards. I said, look, I'm not going to win, so I'm trying to make sure people know about my next book. So when I won that daggone award, I had no speech ready, none of that. And I got on stage and I said, man, it's the hardest job in the world, writing books for Black people. When you dance and sing and act, you get all these awards. You don't get no awards for writing books. It's hard to get Black people to read. And I'm saying that in the middle in front of everybody. They're like, whoa. And I'm like, yeah, we still need to read more. And then I went backstage, and that's when Beyonce and them was still in Destiny's Child. So I went backstage, and Destiny's Child came on stage, and I had no publicity at all, no pictures taken. And then Shamar Moore was backstage. They taking pictures and interviewing him. He didn't even win an award. So they pushed me aside, like, all right, get out the way. Who are you? I said, well, I said, now I'm back to reality. You're a book writer. Nobody cared about it. But I won that award, and I was smiling so hard, my cheeks were hurting. That's my whole cheeks were hard and smiling around. And you walk around with this big old award. Yeah, that was a very surprising night because I had no idea that I was going to win. So I think that was the biggest surprise that of the career I had. That surprise of winning that NAACP Image Award.
Wow. So I have a question. What inspires you?
I was inspired by just being able to do it. One like somebody, you get people to, I was walking down the street and I saw this bird fly in a tree. And I listen to these stories and like, I don't have no stories like that. I was good at telling stories. And then once my friends started challenging me at the college level, Omar, you should write a book or something. I was like, yeah, I'm a writer. I'm gonna write me a book. So it wasn't this knock over the head moment. I knew I could do it already. And I didn't want to disappoint myself and my friends by not doing it. So I got a book I call The Equation, the 4 key components of all successful business. And I said that some people waste their talent, and I call them coulda, woulda, shoulda people. I could have did that. I should have did this. I would have did, but they don't do it. So they always talk about the talent they had, but they didn't use it. I didn't want to be one of them people. So once I knew I had the skills of writing, the skills of storytelling, and I got challenged to do it, I said, I'm going to step up and do that. And that's what I've been doing ever since. It's that sophomore year of college. I went straight to it, and I've been doing it ever since.
So go ahead, Tiff.
Oh, I was going to say, this leads me to another question. What advice would you give anyone who's starting off writing?
I give them 2 of them. Number 1, writers write. I always say that. Because I get so many people say, I always thought about writing. I be thinking about writing. One day I'm going to write something. And they're not doing it. And I'm like, look, if you want to cook, are you going to keep talking about cooking, or are you going to get in the kitchen and put something on the grill? If you want to play double dutch, are you going to keep talking about double dutch, or are you going to buy a rope and go out there? So I'm saying writers write. You don't talk about it. You do it. And then you let people read it and you share it and you keep doing it. That's what writers do. We don't sit around talking about writing. We do it. That's the first thing. Stop procrastinating and write, and then share your work with other people. Go to the poetry clubs, go to the reading clubs, and join a book club or something. And then the second one, finish what you start. And I say that, and I say, look, do not start off trying to write a novel. Don't do that. Write a short story, write an essay, write something small so you can learn how to finish. Because I get people that start off trying to write a novel and they get stuck on page 30 and they're like, well, Omar, I'm on page 30. What do I do? And I'm like, I don't know. Where you going with the book? Well, I don't know. Have you outlined the book? No, I just started writing it. Well, if you're going to write a book, you got to know how to finish small stuff first. And then you can finish chapter 2, chapter 3. But once you finish small things, you get used to knowing how to close out a story. But you can't write a big novel without knowing how to close out a story. So you get people that get lost and don't know how to finish because they got to learn how to finish the small things first. So those are things I always tell people. Writers write, so stop procrastinating and talking about writing, and finish what you start by starting small things first. Just write an essay first, write a commentary on a song you like, write a review on a movie. Do small stuff that you can finish in 500 or 1,000 words before you start trying to write 50,000 words in 100,000 words like I do.
Oh, wow. So now you got something new coming up. You got that book tour coming up. When does that start?
Yeah, we got the tour coming up, and it's going to start in June. So the new books are coming out. May the 6th is the release date now. So now we about 1 month out from the books being released. And then I had to set up the tour for the summer. Everybody's out of school in June and July. And so I'm going to be touring up and down the East Coast to the Midwest and to the West Coast. And then I try to get up there in London and get down there in the Caribbean and go over there to Canada. So I'm going to be quite busy this year. But we start in June, and I call it the elevation and evolution of the American Black woman, because that's what I did with Flyy Girl. I raised her from age 6 all the way up to like 37. And right now, she was born in 71, so she would have been turning 54 this year in real life. So she's just 2 years behind me.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I have something to say. It's not about the book. It's not about the tour or anything. You being a Philly native, there's always some controversy of where's the best place to eat to get a Philly cheesesteak. Which one would you say is the best place to go?
You know what? I'm going to say what all Philadelphians say. When you go to Philadelphia, we got cheesesteaks on every daggone block. So that whole, what's the best way to get that? Nobody in Philadelphia can tell you that, because we haven't eaten every cheesesteak at we got like 1,000 cheesesteak stores in Philadelphia. So when they that is big, and here's what I'm going to tell you. When you go to those places that make like 100, 200 cheesesteaks a day, it's like a factory. They fast with a bit of, I would advise you not to go to a regular neighborhood joint that make maybe 20 cheesesteaks a day, because they're going to put more time and effort into it than going to them places where they got a line of 200 people. They just making fast cheesesteaks, and then sometimes they use fake cheese and hold the cheese with it. Go to the regular places that use real cheese and real stuff, you know what I mean, with only 20 cheesesteaks a night, instead of them people doing 200 cheesesteaks, because they're not going to do it up to standard. So I would say, as most Philadelphians, when you go there, you can get a good cheesesteak from any place in the city. You don't have to go to some special place.
Yeah, they were saying the mommy and poppy stores, go over there, the bodegas. They said that's where you get the good stuff. I went to Ishkabibble's. I think that was
Yeah,
my favorite one.
Ishkabibble's. Yeah, that's on South Street. I
Yeah.
typically go there because when I'm on South Street, you go into Ishkabibble's. Yeah, so my sons know Ishkabibble's too. They not from Philadelphia. They were born in Charlotte. But when I go home with them, they know Ishkabibble's. So
Yeah.
in fact, my son put that in a song. We got a song called International Soul, a Philadelphia song, and he raps on it for 16 bars or whatever, and he brings up Ishkabibble's in the song.
Yeah, they were good. I enjoyed them.
Yeah, so Ishkabibble's is one of the popular ones on South Street. They got 2 of them now, Ishkabibble's 1 and 2.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Because I went in 2017. I was like, let me go back to Philly, because I knew I was going to move soon. So I was like, let me just go back and, check it out.
Now we're the football champs. If you go back now, we the champs.
Oh, yeah, I know.
We got that.
Yeah, got that Super Bowl.
Yeah, we got that South Carolina legend, Smoking Joe Frazier from South Carolina. Is one of the most famous Philadelphians ever for boxing, but he's actually from South Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Smoking Joe Frazier. That famous 1972 fight with Ali in there. They're up there in Harlem, New York, or actually Madison Square Garden. They was in Madison Square Garden. Big old fight. Yeah, but he's like the most famous boxer in Philadelphia, and he's from South Carolina.
We gotta say how can everyone follow you to get ready for this book tour and pre-order their books?
Yeah, you got to go to hotlavaentertainment.com, or you can follow me on onlyoneomartyree.com on Instagram. Everything else is just Omar Tyree, TikTok, Facebook, LinkedIn, and we start the tour in Philadelphia. In fact, the 5th is my first library event, but Pittsburgh has me coming up there May 31st, right before the Philadelphia kickoff. Then I got Camden, New Jersey, and I'm gonna try to do something in Delaware, which is right below Philadelphia. So I'm gonna be quite busy this summer, all over the place, and we're gonna be down in South Carolina. I think we got our date the 26th of June, which is a Thursday. We're gonna try to do a relationship talk in South Carolina, the elevation and evolution of the American Black woman, where we talk about relationships. For those 3 books that I put out with the Flyy Girl thing, that's gonna be interesting all over the country. We got a new generation now.
Yeah.
I'm excited about that.
Right? I'm excited.
Yeah, the 26th. We got to announce the venue when we come. Right now, we're still trying to lock in a venue, but we know that's going to be the date, the 26th of June. coming back down to Charleston, South Carolina, North Charleston. You always say North Charleston. What's regular Charleston? North Charleston. So what's in regular Charleston? What's in South Charleston? You know, I've been down there quite a few times, you know, and then got blown away by the Geechee talk down there. What you know, man? What you know about me, man? What you know about man? What about man? I was like, whoa, you know,
Right.
but I loved it, man. I was at the mall and I was buying some food. And it was Geechee's sister was working behind the counter, and she started talking. I was like, "Whoa, what is that?" You know. But I knew what it was because I had heard about it before. And when she started talking, I said, "That's faster than down south. It don't sound Caribbean, but it's something different." And she kept saying, "Man, what do you want, man? What do you want, man? Yeah, that's the way it gotta be, you know." But that was cool, man. I love culture, so yeah, that blew me away. Like, wow, you know, I was excited. So I met like 4 Geechees with the talk now. And they was all excited that I was excited. Yeah.
That's good. Yeah, it definitely gets you. Sometimes when I talk to my aunt, I'm like, she's talking so fast. I'm like, wait. What you say again? But she's laughing, and I'm like, I'm lost. I'm like, I have no idea what's going on. So, so it's definitely different. It's definitely different.
Yeah.
But what else do we have to say, Tiff? You gonna close out?
Yeah. So we usually end our interviews with the elevator pitch almost question. It's like almost a elevator pitch question. So I'm going to ask, what are 3 words that you would describe your passion for writing, and then
3
your
words?
upcoming project? Yeah, and why would you choose those 3 words?
Only 3 words?
Yes, only 3 words.
Excited, optimistic, and determined. How about that?
That's good.
That's
Why did you choose those words?
Yeah, that's the 3 words. Who say that? Say it again. The 2 words.
You said, why did you choose those words?
Oh, well, excited. You know, I'm an Aries. I'm a fire sign. I got a lot of energy, so you got to be excited about what you can. If you don't get excited, you know, that's where that new energy comes. You got to be excited for what you're doing. And I forgot the second one. I know determination is the last one. What's the second one? Excited.
optimistic.
Optimistic. There you go. Yeah, I still want to do movies. So I have to stay optimistic. It's very hard to get the budgets, man. It's really hard to get the money, you know. And so you get a lot of people that want to do movies, but they don't have the money. So getting the money to do movies has been really hard, but I have to stay optimistic and just believe that it's going to happen at some point where I can start making movies, because I've been wanting to do that for a long time. And then the determination, yeah, you can't quit. You got to keep going. You know what I mean? And I think a lot of successful people say that all the time. The difference is we don't stop. We keep going. So yeah, we keep it rolling and keep writing and keep trying to push my way into the movie zone. So yeah, that's the 3 words: excited, optimistic, and determined. I will not give up.
Awesome. Well, thank you again for joining us. I know I was excited just as much as Nicole was. We hoping that you can get this movie going. Hopefully, if Taraji ever watch this, she need to get on in on this, because I think she'd be awesome. Get on it, especially last book, you know, of the Flyy Girl series.
Well, I got a whole lot of books, not just Flyy Girl. I want to do films on. You know, in fact, I got a relationship vehicle I want to do now called The Conversation. Black man and black woman that, you know, would be on fire right now because of all the different changing of attitudes and ideas that we have as men and women. So, you know, I got a lot of projects that, you know, it's not just Flyy Girl. Everybody immediately thinks that, but I got 30 books. And a lot of them books are great vehicles. So I want to do movies for, you know, to the rest of my life. You know what I mean? It ain't just Flyy Girl, but you know, everybody talks about that one. And of course, that's the one that Hollywood grabbed up immediately, but they don't know how to do it yet. So you still have to stay optimistic and determined. And we still talking about it, but I got other vehicles I want to do as well as films.
That's awesome. And I'm excited about this panel. Please keep us up to date with all the information. Hopefully we can come down and see it. I would love to be down there.
Yeah. It's going to be something else. Yep. You're going to be something else. But yeah, I can't wait to jump on tour, and we can get everything on tape, and we get everybody, you know, tweeting and texting and TikToking and YouTubing and all that kind of stuff. We can spread the word around all summer and keep it coming.
All right, everybody. Flyy Girl 2025 book tour. Gonna have conversation panelists. I'm excited, as you can see. I'm excited. everybody, you know, make sure I'm gonna have all the information how you can follow Omar. This
Yep.
was great. Thank you again for coming on and taking the time. I know it's Sunday. Everybody's like, I want to relax, but thank you for taking the time to come
It's a
on.
pretty Sunday. Pretty. You got the light shining through your window. I got the light shining all over here. I got light everywhere. Yeah, it's a
It's really
beautiful
nice.
Sunday. Yeah,
Yes, it's
definitely.
really nice.
Thanks for having me on. And yeah, we're gonna have a heck of a summer. I'm trying to have the hottest summer tour this year. You know, the evolution and elevation of the American Black woman. We're gonna get into it.
Well, thank you again. Thank you all for
Yes.
watching, and please like, share, and subscribe.